Hey guys, my name is Rory. I'm with Nucraft Metal Products. We manufacture the Craftlander boat lift. What we have here, I'm going to go over a video with you on how to assemble the brand new for us, came out in 2025, vertical cable hydraulic. This one we're doing today is going to be a 6,000 pound capacity, 120 inches wide. When you get the boat lift from your authorized dealer, to know what to expect, you will have, starting in the back here, you have two twin beams, one front, one back. You have two of the cradle tubes, they're part of the carriage, one for the left, one for the right. Right here, this is what we call the package. This is going to include all your spreaders, your lower side panels, your columns for the corners, everything, your legs, your foot pads, everything is banded together in this package right here with metal banding. Always make sure when you cut that metal banding off, be careful with it, get it out of the way. It will cut you. Just make sure you're very careful with that. Lastly, in this file here, we have, you could call it the winch tube, hydraulic tube, whatever you want to call it here. This has the hydraulic cylinder inside of it. It's already pre-strung with the cables. The I-beams as well in the back are pre-strung with the cables. That is your basic aluminum parts for the boat lift. Moving over here. In this box here on the bottom, what we have inside of that, we've already opened it up. You're going to have your hydraulic pump. Fiberglass box already installed on here. It's all hooked up, ready to rock and roll. All you have to do is hook up your hydraulic lines and everything else is good to go. Outside of that, you're going to have a solar panel box. It's a 30 watt, 12 volt solar panel. This is the hardware mounting bracket, mounting arm for the solar panel as well. Inside of that box, you will find the instructions for the solar panel, how to mount it. We're not going to go over that in this video. These are very good instructions to show you how to do it. Very simple to do. Next, you will have the hardware box. And what I've done is I've emptied it out, I've opened it up, what's included in the hardware box. Starting here, you're going to have four vertical guide plates. There's one in each corner of the carriage. These are your foot pad brackets, there will be four of these. These are your diagonal brace plates. You're going to have four of these inside of this bag. You're going to have a carriage hardware bag. It says carriage right on it and what hoist it's for. And then you're going to have a frame bag. It's going to say exactly what it's for right on the bag. Starting out with this lift, we are going to work on the frame bag as step number one. All right, so as part of step one, what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to locate. You have four columns in that package. This is one of the columns here. This is what they look like. This is going to be what your leg tubes look like right here. You'll notice it's got your adjustment for height holes there and your bolt hole for your foot pad bracket here. This is what your foot pad looks like. There'll be four of these in the kit as well. These are your leg pad brackets. Okay, that's going to sit on here like so. What you're going to do, this bag right here, what I opened up was the frame bag that we talked about earlier. You're going to locate this bag right here. It has the 3/8 by 3/4 carriage bolts. What you'll need is two of those per corner and then two of the brass 3/8 whiz nuts. On the foot pad, these carriage bolts go in from the bottom, like so. Whiz nut goes on the top side. Installed at number 2, second one. Install like so.
Perfect.
Next, what we have here, the leg tube. What we're going to want to do here, locate this hole that we talked about earlier. That is the only way that this can physically go together. Lay your leg tube on there. In that same bag, you're going to find these four bolts here. And then you're going to find a hex nut that matches the bolt right here. Hold it up like so, put the bolt through, install the nut. What you're going to want to do next, you're go ahead and tighten the carriage bolts up, and this bolt, snug them up nice and tight. Next step. One thing you'll notice about this column here, we call these the L&T brackets. You can see if you look closely why we call them the L&T brackets. We're going to call this side the outside of the hoist, and how do they make a corner? That's the inside of the hoist. The reason that I'm pointing that out is for this step right here. What you're going to do next, you have the bolt bag with the leg pins in it and cotter pins. Take out one of each. Put them here, insert the leg tube in the hole. It's going to mount up with the hole. It's already pre-existing. Slide your leg tube in. Now for assembly reasons, I like to leave this leg a little bit extended out. It'll help you later on in the project to tighten the bolts with clearance. Now, with your L&Ts, this being the inside of the hoist right here where it kind of makes a corner, this must go through from the outside in. The reason for that, if you put that in going this way, later on when the hoist is assembled, if you have to adjust the hoist, you cannot get this pin out. There's a steel plate that will be in the way. So again, make sure you're applying from the outside in. Put the cotter P on. This is an assembled foot pad on the column. You're going to repeat this step 3 more times. All right, next step is here. What you'll see here laying out is almost the entire package for the boat lift. We've installed previously all 4 leg tubes and foot pads together. We've laid out the corresponding columns where they go. We've got your spreader tubes right here. Spreader tubes, labeled on the inside of the tube what it is. It's the ones with 4 holes like this on each end, front and back. Lower side panel tubes. Make note, these holes right here, there's 2 of them in the center. Those are always going to be pointing to the top, okay? Next step is, this is an important step in the hydraulic vertical boat lift. Reason being, the winch tube here with the hydraulic cylinder is very heavy. If you don't have a lot of help, this is the best way to do it. You have your 2 columns that insert at the end of that, as well as your lower side panel here. What you want to do, take your first column, slide it in the end, take your lower side panel. Again, make note of these holes need to be pointing to the top. Slide it on your elbow. Repeat those steps on this side of the lift here. Make sure your cables are down where they need to be. And you may see this once in a while where it falls apart. Now what we're going to do is we're going to simply put the bolts in to help hold it together for the time being. You grab 2 of the 3/8 by 7. Take it down to the top here, make sure it lines up. Same thing on this side here. Next, you will find 4 3/8 by 4.5 with the 3/8 whiz nuts. You can put the nuts on the top ones. The ones on the bottom, we just put in the 7-inchers. Do not put any nuts on them yet. What you're going to do here, get that lined up with your holes you can see through. Get your bolts started in there. Until you get this squared up perfectly, the bolts may not fall all the way in. One thing to make note of, the aluminum angle that's mounted here where your battery tray goes, that must be pointing towards the outside of your hoist. During this step, it must be pointing towards the ground. You do not want that on the inside of the lift. What our goal is to take this side panel, stand it up, and assemble the rest of the lift. Once you have those bolts into place, you can install your nuts on the bottom of these 4 bolts. Again, you will have to make sure you're square to get those bolts all the way in. Loosely put the nuts on. You're not going to tighten anything up just yet. All right, next step, what we have, again, we have the 4 bolts connecting to your winch hydraulic tube to the columns with nuts loosely attached. You have 2 of the 4 bolts installed going through the tube into the L-clamp, holding it together. Next step, take one spreader, stand it up in the air, stand it on your T-clamp. For safety reasons, install 1 bolt with no nut. Repeat the same step on this side of the bolt lift. Once you have it looking like this is the step that will save you a lot of time and muscle from picking things up. Mind you, what we're going to do now, we're going to take this and stand it up. You want to make sure you're clear on this side for these spreader tubes to make it all the way to the ground. This is always helpful. If you do have another person to help you lift this part up, it's very helpful to have them do that. Stand the side panel up like so. This is what you should have. Also make note, the previous comment about this aluminum angle has to be towards the outside of the bolt lift. Next step, you can grab one of the remaining 2 columns, stand it up. Notice these are going to be a mirror image, exactly what you did over there, exactly what you did over there. Pick up your spreader tube, where it needs to be. Now, as you pick that up, always keep in mind, you don't want to lift the spreader tube too tall. That will go back down to the ground and could fall. So be very careful, only lift it up as high as you need to. Repeat on the very last column. Slide that on. 2 more of the 3/8 by 7. This is going to hold it into place. Drop the bolt in. Can always help get it to go all the way. Moving the column where it needs to be. Like so. Now the last piece we have left, this part of the process, is going to be your lower side panel. This will be the dock side of the boat lift. Slide one end down at a time. Like so. At this point, you can take the remaining 3/8 by 7. Each corner is going to get 2 bolts in each tube. Again, you will not be installing nuts at this point. All right, from this stage here, these bolts you'll see at every corner that I am standing up still. Those I like to leave up like that. For the time being, we'll be putting steel quarter plates on the bottom. And it's easier to line it up without all your bolts poking through. The next step. Out of the package. These will be your last components in the package. We call these the diagonal braces. You can see they're mitered on one end, straight cut on the other end. These are going to go on the dock side of the boat lift. You can install one at a time. You will find 2 brass lock nuts, 2 1/2-inch bolts, the only 2 in the frame bag. First, you'll see this formed bracket up here at the top. Slide your tube into it. Set it right there on top of your lower side panel. Take your bolt at the top, get that hole to line up. One bolt. Two bolts. Now you can install your 1/2-inch brass nylock nuts loosely on those bolts. The next step, you will have 6 3/8 bolts left. The bag that you had these, I talked about earlier, for the diagonal braces, they're a flat plate. There's going to be 4 of these included. Looks like this. What you're going to want to do here is drop 1 bolt through 1 plate at the top. Bolts always go from the inside out, wherever they're going to interfere with the carriage or the boat. Stick that through. I like to put another bolt in there. Do your 2 bolts first. Another plate on the outside. Then you can install your third bolt. The hole that I'm going into currently is what I spoke about earlier on these lower side panels. These holes, that's why they have to be pointing up. After that step, you can grab 6 of the 3/8 brass whiz nuts and install them loose. Once that is done right here, you have the frame completely assembled, everything's loose. The next step is going to be the galvanized corner plates. These were part of the package that were packaged inside of the foot pads. These are what the plates look like right here. Now, each corner on this boat lift is going to get 2 of these. Now, starting in this corner here, these bolts, these long bolts that you put through, these can only go on one way. You can't really mix it up, okay? Now, the trick is, these are going to be stacked. So what you're going to want to do, put 2 together. You may try to push up your bolts, but if you can get 1 through, put the nut on it. That'll hold them in place. Again, these are just going to be loose connected right now. This bolt right here, all 4 corners, The clamp only goes in so far, so you're just going through the tube here, tying onto these steel plates. You can always utilize this hole for a peek hole to help get that bolt through the tube all the way. That is a complete corner minus the tightening. You're going to repeat that 3 more times. All right, now that we have all the steel corner plates installed, remember, 2 per corner. And remember, this bolt does not have the clamp inside, so you never, in the second bolt in, on your side panels only, you'll make sure, do not over tighten this. If you see it start to crush the tube, just stop. It's tight enough, it just needs to be snug. The next step, here, when you're at this point, when you're ready to tighten the bolts, I'm not going to demonstrate this because this is for assembly only. What you want to do is pick a spot on here, do your X dimensions from corner to corner, kitty corner, both ways. You want to get the same number. Depending on where you measure from, your number is going to change. So you want to make sure you measure from the same spot on each corner, and you want to get this thing square. Once that square is done, you can go through and tighten every bolt and nut that you just put in. The next step after that, what I did here on this table, I opened up the carriage bag. This is what's inside of it. We spoke about these guide plates earlier. There's 4 of those. This is your bag of plastic caps. These are pretty much self-explanatory where they go on the boat lift. We're not going to be putting those in today, but it is labeled exactly on the print where they go. Next, you're going to have these pipe spacers right here. Note, there's 2 that are one length, 2 that are a different length. I'll explain that later in the process. You got your carriage bolts here, and these big 5/8 brass lock nuts. These are for your cables. With those lock nuts in the bag, and I have these broke out to what bag they were in. With these lock nuts, you're going to have 2 5/8 stainless steel washers. These stainless steel washers are where your cables attach up top and up top only. They're not required going through the steel corner plates. The next step, now that everything is tight, you got your X dimension, everything is the same, you're ready to move forward. What we like to use here is a 4x4 for the corners. Now if you have 2x4s at home, you can actually use your bunks that may come with the hoist. If you have something sitting around the yard, this will help you with starting to assemble the carriage. What we do with these at all 4 corners, set it here on a diagonal. Do not get too close to the corner because you're going to have to reach in there to put nuts and bolts in. All right, the next step, now that we have the 4x4 pieces of lumber on all 4 corners, this is what the goal is, to support the carriage up in the air so you can see what you're doing. You set the I-beams on there first, and then you can set the front to back numbers on the carriage. Now, make note, the cables coming out of the beams, you're going to have a short stud on one end, and on the other end, you're going to have a long stud. The long studs will always point to the sky, they go up. The short ones will always go down. First thing you want to do, take this cable, these are all pretty strong. Take it out of this hole. You're going to stick it through the hole in the corner plate. Now, in each one of these corner plates, there's going to be 2 holes. For the I-beams, you're going to put it in the one directly underneath the I-beam, closest to the column. Like so. Put the cable in, pull it through. You're going to repeat that step at this other corner here. Once you have the cables like that, you can now take the front to back member, just line up your bolt holes. Goes together like so. Repeat that process on this end of the lift. Go to the other end. This one here, this is where your up cables are. Okay, this is the long stud again. You will notice on this tube where the hole that the cable comes through, it's got a slot in it to slide the cable in. So you take that cable, slide it through that hole, line it up just like you did over there. Repeat that step in the back. Like so. We're going to start on this corner. These 2 corners on the dock side of the boat lift are going to be the same as far as assembly and how they bolt together. What I've got here, and these 3/8 bolts, you're going to find some with a small shoulder on them, some without a shoulder at all, okay? The reason for that shoulder comes back to your corner plates. Your corner plate, this cutout right here, is made to keep the carriage in the center of the boat lift, sliding up and down. That sets right here on top of the carriage. Get your holes loosely lined up there. The bolts with the shoulder, also the 3/8 stainless washers. Anytime a bolt goes through the plastic, it has to have a washer on it. Install like so. Install like so. The ones with no shoulder are for the areas that do not have the plastic. You can loosely put the carriage together by installing the nuts loose. Now, there are 3 more holes on the bottom. These bolts will go up from the bottom. Second one, third one. By installing these up from the bottom, they can go through from the top down as well. By installing them through the bottom, what it will do is it will let your carriage go down lower towards the lake bottom. Not a huge deal, but if you're in shallow water and need every inch you can get, it's a good idea to install this way. 3 bolts in the bottom, 5 bolts up top through the plastic. Now those bolts right there, the more of this carriage you get bolted together, the easier these bolts will go in. You're just working on getting everything lined up. Go ahead and install your nuts loose. All right, moving on, next step. What you would like to do now is hook up the beam cables. So what we have 2 3/4 inch, or excuse me, 5/8 inch stainless washers and 4 brass lock nuts. The bottom beam cables over here, we put through the corner plates earlier in the video. What you're gonna do, there's no washers on these ones. Pick up your cable, put your nut on the end of the cable. Now, one thing that's very important when you put these nuts on, when you tighten them up, you're gonna tighten them all the way down, utilizing all the stud on the cable. The reason that we recommend doing that is because when your carriage is all the way down, our carriage goes inside of the lower framework. You want the clearance here away from the beams or anything like that, or else you can cut the cable. So that's why it's imperative to tighten that nut all the way down on the bottom end only. All your adjustments going to be on the top side. Put your nut on there, move to the back end of the hoist, install the other nut on the lower cable. Again, no washer. Once those are on, what you can do is come to the other side. The long studs again are going up. This is where you're going to utilize a washer and a nut. Put this cable all the way through. When you look at the other side here, you want to make sure that the cable is seated into the corner plate how it should be. Once you confirm that, you can finish hooking up the other side. Long stud, 3 aluminum tube, washer, nut. These nuts at this point in the assembly can be just spun on there just enough up to the nylock. All your adjustments for leveling the carriage will be done at a later point in the video. Once that's done, you can move to the back of the hoist, do the other cable up top. These are your two beam cables that are hooked up. Now, the question will come up, how do I level the carriage? When you get to the point when you're done, when all the hard work's tightened up, everything's leveling, with your I-beams here, your winch tubes on that side, your beams are here. By tightening these cables at the top or loosening them is how it's going to lift this side of the carriage or lower this side of the carriage. So your measurements that are over there should match what they're over here within a 1/4 inch or so. That's how you level the carriage. Next step in the assembly of the 6000 hydraulic. The hydraulic tray, one thing I really want to point out, this is absolutely imperative. You have a red plug here that comes in for shipping purposes. Your reservoir is already full of fluid. You have a vent cap. The vent cap will be in the storage port. When you take this out, it's just a port, it doesn't go into the tank. This red plug must be removed and swapped out with the vent cap. You can store the vent cap in the port where the store the plug in the port where the vent cap was. Put your vent cap there. We also have placed a sticker on there saying stop, swap plugs. Vent cap would be in this location to operate the hoist. Next, you have your two ports here. These are where your hydraulic lines are going to hook up. You can't mix it up. You have a female and a male. We've already plumbed everything so it cannot be screwed up. Wiring is already all done. You have two pigtails coming out of the bottom of the controller. Pay attention to the white collars on them. This one says solar. Okay, your solar panel will plug directly into here. There is a built-in charge regulator inside of this controller, will prevent from overcharging your battery at any time. Second pigtail, if you choose the option or accessory of the 12-volt light for canopy top or one of the columns, this is where it would plug in. You turn the light on and off with the button on here or your wireless fob. Lastly, your tray will come included with, in the battery tray, will be a bag here. This is your pendant. Whether you use this or not, it's totally up to you. Your pendant will plug into the wire harness over here. There's a gray plug ready to go for it. It's going to have your two wireless key fobs, and also it will have a small bag in here with your mounting bolts to mount this tray to the boat lift. All right, once you get the hydraulic tray with the pump set up on top here, I recommend putting your battery in after you bolt it down. The bag that was inside with the remote fobs and the pendant, with these two bolts are right here. This is where you're going to utilize these. There is going to be one on each end of the tray. One is going on this end. Like so. The other one will be down on this end. Right underneath the controller. Next step is, once you set your battery up here, you have a battery strap pre-installed. Clip it, snug it, lock up the battery. Next step, hydraulic lines. You're going to have a female and you're going to have a male to hook up. Pull the caps off. Doesn't matter if you do male or female first. Hook up your hydraulic lines like so. Again, if you have not done this step yet, vent cap must be in this location. Lastly, battery cables. You always want to make sure negative is going to be on this side of the battery, positive over here. Our cables are predetermined for length for that to happen. Hook up your red cable first. Get her snug down good with a wrench. Then you can hook up your negative cable. All right, last thing to hook up here. You will see behind the controller, not going to be able to get it on the video, you will see a gray plug. This is for your pendant. It matches this plug. It would plug in right here behind the controller. You can run this wire over your canopy top to the dock side of the boat lift to have manual wired buttons to operate the boat lift. Once that part is done, you can now install the fiberglass lid over all of this, or leave it open until you're done with the build. Now at this point, you will be able to go up and down with the fob or with the controller. Alright guys, next step after the hydraulic pump is all mounted, the last step of the project is going to be to attach the cables that are out of the winch tube. You're going to see pre-assembled aluminum plates on here like so. Please pay attention to the warning sticker on here. These must be pointed to the outside of the lift. Where the rounded corners are, must be pointed to the outside. The reason for that is cable alignment coming out of the tube. Okay? So, first things first, you still have 2 of the guide plates left. Take one of these, set it on here first. Like so. This plate, set it on top of that. You're going to take 2 of your 3/8 bolts right here. One through the top on the inside. Loosely fasten your nuts to those bolts. Next, what you're going to find, you're going to have 2 of the 5/16 by 1¼ inch. These are going to go on the bottom, okay? Not on the outside too here, these are going to go on the inside. Up from the bottom.
3/8.
Excuse me, these bolts are 3/8 by 1¼ inch. Install one. Install the other. Lastly, what you're going to have left is going to be 2 to 3/8 by 9½. These bolts right here are also going to get your pipe spacers between the flange of the I-beam. Now you'll notice earlier on in the video I said you're going to have 2 different sizes. You're going to get 1 of each size per corner. You can see where the long one would go here, shorter ones go in here. What you want to do with this, start with the bolts coming up from the bottom. Put your pipe spacer on, come all the way up, get everything lined up there. Sometimes, like I said earlier, you have to square things up perfectly or the bolts are just going to fall into place. Next one. Again, up from the bottom, put your spacer on. All the way up like so. Put your nut on. Alright, once you have repeated the previous step at the back corner and you have your entire carriage, all the bolts tightened up, every bolt, nut, everything on this lift should be tight at this point to spec. At this point, the lift is ready to be operational. The next step would be to take your wireless fob, lift up the carriage. Once you have the carriage up in the air, you can remove your 4x4s or whatever you may have used to hold the carriage for assembly. your very last step for this. This video is not covering any bunks or anything like that. This is the complete hoist build. The last step you have to do is to level your carriage. Again, make sure every nut and bolt, take a double, triple check. Everything's been tightened on the hoist outside of the upper cables over here. This is going to be your only adjustment for your carriage. A good rule of thumb to use is measure on this side, top of I-beam, down to the top of your spreader. Remember that measurement? Come over here, put the tape measure in the exact same spot. Again, on this cable coming out of the beam going up, any bit you tighten this will raise this side of the carriage only. You're going to repeat that step at the other end of the hoist, the front end of the hoist. Once you're done with that, you're ready to put bunks on and put this puppy to work. All right, in closing for the video, the hoist is ready to be operationally used. At this point, you can, if you're in shallower water, you can pull the pin, lower your legs up all the way to get the frame all the way to the bottom. Now, you can see with our carriage, it drops right inside of your lower framework. This lower framework will pretty much be sitting on the ground once you drop those legs. To show you how she works, you have your wireless fob here. And that is complete. Thanks for watching.